Dawn breaks over the Chao Phraya plain. Mist moves between the stupas like slow breath, and the sound of a monk's bell rolls across the river, a single bronze note that trembles in the air before dissolving into the hum of insects. Inside a small temple compound, the walls glimmer strangely in the morning light. What seems to be plaster reveals faint ivory shapes beneath its lacquer. Ribs, wrist bones, a pattern of human geometry polished smooth by centuries of prayer. This is not a crypt, it is a sermon built from flesh. In the Buddhist world of 18th century Siam, death was never distant. It was a teacher. To see it, to touch it, was to learn the first truth of the Dharma. All things change. When war and plague left piles of anonymous bones across the countryside, the monks of the lowland temples faced a choice: burn them and forget, or sanctify them. They chose to build. They saw no contradiction in it. The body, like a brick, could serve the temple even after its breath was gone. Wat Ta Kien's bone wall. In the years after a devastating flood, the monks of Wat Ta Kien found their temple half collapsed. Bricks were scarce, the clay pits drowned, and timber prices soared. But bones from the flooded cemetery had washed to the surface, bleached, scattered, nameless. The abbot ordered them gathered, cleaned, and sealed within new walls of clay. What began as necessity became revelation. When sunlight struck the lacquer, faint shadows of vertebrae appeared beneath, reminding worshippers that even ruin could serve merit. Travelers described the place as quiet and luminous, smelling of rain and sandalwood. To kneel there was to kneel inside a body returned to peace. Each recited chant was thought to release one's soul from suffering. The villagers called the wall Phra Phum Khao Heng Ngan, the gentle spirits who hold the temple upright. The idea spread. Building with remains was not desecration, but gratitude. The dead were invited to keep teaching through structure. The wall became both sermon and shelter. Monks painted the outer surface white, but during festivals they polished sections to a sheen, letting the patterns of bone gleam faintly beneath candlelight. To the faithful, it was proof that compassion could have weight and texture. By the time the wall was complete, no one remembered whose bones lay within. Identity had dissolved into function. The monks said that was the point. When the body forgets its name, one wrote, it becomes foundation. Wat Phra That Bang Phuan. Further north, near the Mekong borderlands, a later generation refined the idea. Here, the monks ground the bones of cremated elders into fine powder, mixing it with lime and clay to form a sacred plaster for miniature stupas. Every new stupa housed relics, prayers, and a fragment of the community itself. The process smelled faintly of smoke and wet earth. It was delicate work. Too much bone, and the plaster cracked. Too little, and the blessing faded. Local chronicles record that the abbot called the mixture the compassion of dust. Villagers brought urns from their homes, donating the remains of parents and teachers to the building. The boundary between temple and village blurred. When the stupa rose, it contained them all. On full moon nights, candles ringed the base, and the light turned the white surface to pale gold. Children said the tower glowed because it remembered the people who built it. To visitors, Bang Phuan looked ordinary, a provincial temple wrapped in forest. But for the community, it was living memory cast in stone. Every time the plaster was repaired, another generation's bones joined the mix. Over centuries, the structure thickened, a layered history of devotion disguised as architecture. The monks taught that maintenance itself was meditation, polishing what decays, accepting that even holiness requires renewal. When travelers asked why they used bone instead of new stone, an elder monk replied, "Stone forgets." Dust remembers his words lingered among pilgrims who came to touch the warm surface of the stupas at dusk. The glass chedi of Sisaket. In the far northeast, where the land flattens toward Cambodia, a new idea of sacred architecture began to shimmer above the rice fields. The monks of Wat Pa Maha Chedi Kayo, known today as the Glass Pagoda, decided that transparency, not opacity, best expressed purity. They built a stupa from recycled glass bottles, green and brown, bound with concrete. Inside, they placed a small reliquary filled with bone fragments, remnants of an older temple destroyed by fire. The bottles caught the sunlight, scattering it across the prayer hall like water. To visitors, it looked modern, even whimsical. But to the monks, it was a continuation of the same teaching, that what is discarded can become devotion. The bones at the center gave the glass its meaning. The living and the dead, the durable and the fragile, were fused. Each morning, when the sun rose through the translucent walls, it lit the relic chamber with soft white light, a reminder that enlightenment, like glass, is made through fire. The temple soon became a pilgrimage site. Worshippers left bottles as offerings, joining the cycle of reuse. The abbot explained that the structure was a mirror for impermanence, today's waste becoming tomorrow's shrine. Though the materials had changed, the logic was ancient. Decay transformed into clarity. Monks said that, when the light passed through the bottles at noon, the colors rippled like prayer flags in motion. What had begun centuries earlier with the bone walls of Ta Kien now glimmered with new life, proof that devotion adapts but never abandons its origin. The glass pagoda stood as a parable for the modern world. Even in an age of plastic and glass, the idea of the bone remained, its lesson of transformation hidden inside transparency. Wat Ta Kien's Skull Tower. Far to the north, near Chiang Rai, stands Wat Ta Kien, a monastery founded during a cholera outbreak in the early 19th century. Local history tells of a monk who collected the unclaimed remains of the victims and arranged them into a vertical shrine. He called it the Tower of Compassion. Each skull was encased in lacquer and fitted into niches facing outward, as if watching over the valley. The tower was not a warning, but a prayer. May no more die unseen. Over the years, rain and heat dulled the lacquer, but the shape endured. The villagers repainted the tower with gold leaf during festivals, transforming its solemn presence into something luminous. Children grew up seeing it not as morbid, but as protective. Newlyweds circled it for luck, believing that the spirits within blessed perseverance. Anthropologists later wrote that Wat Ta Kien embodied the Southeast Asian genius for domesticating decay, absorbing fear into daily life until it became gentleness. Inside the prayer hall, monks chant beside small altars containing bits of bone sealed in crystal orbs. The air smells of candle wax, jasmine, and rain. Outside, cicadas sing in long, even tones, as if joining the liturgy. It is quiet, cool, and somehow kind. For all its stark materials, the place feels peaceful. The abbot once explained it to a foreign visitor. To us, a skull is not horror. It is a reminder that even the hardest part of the body can learn to smile. Each dawn, novices sweep the courtyard around the tower. Their brooms brush the dust of generations, and the gold leaf shivers in the wind. When the bell sounds for morning prayer, it vibrates through the tower's hollow interior, a low hum that turns every skull into an instrument of compassion. Wat Sangkhatan's Bone Pagoda. At the end of the 19th century, near Nonthaburi, just north of Bangkok, the monks of Wat Sangkhatan began a project that would fuse art, architecture, and mortality. They collected the ashes and bone fragments of generations of monks whose names were long forgotten and mixed them with powdered marble, resin, and gold leaf. From that substance, they shaped a new stupa, a luminous pagoda that seemed to glow from within. When candlelight passes through its lacquer, tiny flecks of bone catch the flame and sparkle like dust suspended in air. The abbot called the structure the House of Returning Light. It was not meant as a tomb, but as a sermon. All that is solid will turn to dust, and all that is dust can still shine. Each piece of bone was handled as a relic, washed, dried in sunlight, then sealed beneath layers of clear resin. The process took decades. The air inside the workshop smelled of incense and sap. The silence was broken only by the soft tap of chisels and the slow murmur of prayers. When the pagoda was finally complete, the monks placed a single bell at its summit. Its tone was faint, almost fragile, but it carried across the river. Villagers said it sounded like a breath released, a final exhalation that never ended. They believed that every vibration freed one more restless soul. During the evening chanting, the stupa glows like a lantern, its gold leaf rippling in the heat of the candles. To stand before it is to feel both awe and tenderness, as if the entire structure were a heartbeat slowed to stone. Visitors today see only a golden tower rising from white marble, unaware that its glow comes from within. The temple's caretakers explain gently that the bones have no sorrow left in them. They are teaching tools now, reminders that beauty can come from what life leaves behind. In the reflection of the stupa's polished base, you can see the sky trembling upside down, as if the world itself were bowing to impermanence. Across Southeast Asia, temples like these turn decay into devotion. Each wall of bone, each layer of plaster mixed with ash, is less a monument to death than an act of generosity. The body, once burden, becomes offering. The monks who built them understood what every faith eventually learns, that to deny mortality is to live in fear of it, but to build with it is to be free. The Bone Pagodas are not silent graves. They are conversations between the living and the lost. When sunlight touches their lacquered walls, the distinction between flesh and stone disappears, only light remains. The worshipper, kneeling inside, hears the same teaching that has echoed for centuries. Everything changes, and that is why it endures. From the crude bone walls of Wat Ta Kien to the golden stupa of Wat Sangkhatan, the journey of these temples mirrors the journey of Buddhism itself, turning suffering into compassion, fear into form, and impermanence into art. In their quiet radiance, the dead continue to serve the living, not as ghosts, but as structure, holding the world upright, one fragment at a time. The candle gutters, the bell fades, and the air smells faintly of rain and sandalwood. The lesson remains: enlightenment is built, bone by bone, from the understanding that nothing we love was ever meant to last, and that this, precisely, is what makes it sacred.